welcome. It is 3:59 at the time of filming this PM. So if you are still in the office and if you managed to catch this live and you were looking for permission to leave, it's nearly 4 o'clock. Pack your bags up and get out of there. If you were looking for permission, this is it. But welcome back, and kind of saying welcome back to myself because I started doing these weekly live sessions and I fell off the wagon for a couple of reasons. And it really hit home the reason why sometimes you can start something with real good intention and it doesn't always go that way. And there's always, I can't remember who said it, that many a times it isn't motivation that stops us, it's environment. And for those of you who do know, I spend half of my time in the UK and half of my time in the Caribbean. And as much as I'm going to say I prefer the other coast, well, you can guess what coast I'm on right now because I'm wearing a jumper. But as much as I prefer the other coast, sunshine, warm skies, fresh air, fresh food, the beach is like literally just down the road. I can see it from the house. It's not always the quietest place to be because in the Caribbean, as you can imagine, it's outdoor living. A lot of it, the outside is inside. So I started doing the lives like this, but then there were so many disturbances. And it's the little things that you don't always pay attention to on a day-to-day basis. It's birds, it's cockerels, it's somebody going past with and blowing a car horn. It's somebody walking past and calling out to a neighbor. I could be mid-film and somebody spots me in the veranda if I wherever I'm sitting and Rachel, and it's okay, hi. Now I've got to do that bit again. But anyway, so because of those little things, it meant that I started filming only when I can control the environment. And so that meant that I was doing more pre-recorded than the lives. But I sat here today and I thought I really would like to just come back on and get into the routine and motion of doing these lives again. So here I am on a Friday. I'm going to be back on a Tuesday because I think that was the day that I was doing these lives, and I'm cross-streaming from 2 LinkedIn and YouTube. So let me know if you do watch this. Well, let me know where you're watching it from. Of course, I'm going to see it on the platform. But I'm going to start doing them again on Tuesday. And one of the things as well, when it comes to living, I say I spend half my time in the UK and half my time in the Caribbean. I call it bi-coastal. I know technically it's not bi-coastal because to be bi-coastal, it's East Coast, West Coast. But I'm crossing the Atlantic and I'm going from one coast to the other. So that's my version of bi-coastal. But I do get asked or told, really, not even asked, I get told, you need to talk more about what it is like living like that. And sometimes I don't know what it is you want to know. So if you are interested in what that life is like, then feel free to ask any questions about what it is to pack up corporate and start living on 2 different sides of, well, nearly 2 different sides of the globe. Part of the reason why I've done it, for some of you might know as well, is I wanted freedom from corporate, but I also needed that freedom to be able to support my parents in their older years. And it's given me the freedom to do that. So that with itself is a freedom, but it also comes with responsibilities. But today I thought I'd come on just to speak about what's happening over the next couple of weeks. And what is happening on the 16th of December is I am hosting the last masterclass for the year, and it's on surviving corporate. Because as much as my sweet spot is speaking to people about leaving corporate and setting up passion-led businesses of their own, successful businesses where you're living a more fulfilled life, we all know that you don't just jump out of that, you don't just jump out of that overnight. Unless you've got a sugar daddy or a sugar mummy, you're not going to just leave. And in the meantime, you have to figure out how to navigate corporate, how to deal with some of the issues that might be the main cause of you wanting to leave anyway. So if you've ever been in those spaces, or if you are in that space right now and you're feeling drained, confused, you're questioning yourself, there's nothing wrong with you. It just means that you're in a space and you haven't yet learnt the skills. Oh, let me just get my leg. Sorry, I always do this and sit on my leg, and now I have to unsit on my leg. But you're in a space where you're having to survive, and corporate survival is not a skill that is taught. There are written rules, there is guidebooks, there are handbooks, there are procedures, there are policies, but there's also unwritten policies, there are unwritten procedures and rules. You can look at the organizational chart, but how do you really know the what's the word, the invisible organizational chart? Who actually has the ear of the director? Who has the ear of your manager? You see the rules and how everything is laid out in the organization, but there are other things at play, and those are the things. And not playing the game, because I really did never liked that word, playing the game, but understanding how those rules work so that you can survive. Many times it feels as if you might be struggling in your job, but it isn't the job that you're struggling with, it's the environment. And there are things that you want to put in place. You want to be able to deal with microaggressions in a way that you're not in turn turned into the aggressor. You want to be able to understand office politics in a way that you don't get drawn into the gossip and the other things that can happen. You want to be able to set boundaries, but you don't want to feel guilty. You want to be able to say no, because a lot of the times you're saying yes to things that you would prefer to say no to, but you don't want to be seen that you're not a team player. It isn't always easy to navigate all of those issues. And like I said, sometimes it feels as if you're struggling with the job, but it isn't you struggling. It's the environment that you're struggling with. And this is the reason why I'm hosting the webinar on the 16th of December. And it's to go through one of the main things that I'm going to be speaking about there is, sorry, I just heard my phone beep. One of the main things that I'm going to be speaking about there is a boundary setting framework that you need to get your head around that will help you. This is one of the things that we all should know in corporate, but we're not always told. But it's a way that you can protect your peace and your progression, because not everybody wants to leave. And like I said, even if you wanted to leave corporate, you're not going to be able to leave tomorrow. So you have to survive that space for as long as you're in there. But if setting up a business is not for you, it also means that you don't want to stay in a space where you're feeling drained, where you're battling with microaggressions, where you're dealing with bullying and just feeling stuck and drained. So the whole point of that as well is that you need to understand how to survive it so that you can go up the ladder or make your sideways move or whatever it is that you need to do to survive, but also to allow you to stay sane whilst you're in those spaces. When you think about the amount of time that we spend in our jobs, it takes up a huge chunk of our life and some of the best years of our lives as well. Some of our most productive years are spent in spaces where we don't feel heard, where we are fighting to be seen, or sometimes not even fighting to be seen. It gets to the point where you don't want to be seen. You just want to lurk in the shadows so the spotlight isn't on you for various reasons. And that's not the way, that's not a healthy way to spend a big chunk of your time. Coming out of there, there are many people who are brilliant but have been psychologically abused by environments that pretend to be inclusive and aren't. So that's the main reason why I've put together this last masterclass for 2025. We're going to go into 2026 and do something different and start the year on a really good note. But to wrap up 2025, I thought it'd be really good to show you how you can set boundaries without fear, how you can maintain your power and control spaces where it feels that there's divided loyalties and office politics and toxic work environments, and how to survive those subtleties in the office that can really break your spirit. And those are the things that you're never warned about in the job interview that, kind of creep up on you suddenly. And then you realize that you're walking into a lion's den every day. But I wanted to also say that, there are times when it can feel that it's draining, especially when it gets to this time of year as well, because you're wrapping up the year and going into a new one. And for many people, this is when you start reflecting on, have I done the right thing? Am I going into 2026, in the same position? What's changed? Have I grown? Have I developed? And there are two things that can be true at the same time. You can be feeling tired, but you can also be ambitious. So don't lean into the, oh my gosh, I'm feeling drained and tired, and ignore the fact that you still have ambitions and goals. You can be feeling overwhelmed, but you can also be talented as well. Those two things can exist in you. And that's that's sometimes why you're feeling that pressure and pull to, I'm here, I'm really good at my job, but there has to be something more. What that does is it can invoke that feeling of guilt. But like I said, you can feel overwhelmed, but also be talented at the same time. And sometimes the overwhelm comes from being in a space where you're not able to use your talents. And that's where you start thinking about, do I still need to be here? Is there another space where I can be, that I can start using my talents in the way that I really want to? And you also can be really great at your job, but struggle with the environment that you're in. And that's something that resonated with me a lot when I was in corporate, in that you're really good at what you do, but the environment just didn't suit me anymore. And there's so many other colleagues, former colleagues as well. Just a couple of days ago, I was speaking to a former colleague, and I just asked one question: how's the job? And for the next hour, it was all of the things that were happening in their environment that was not working for them, and making them feel and questioning their competence in the job. And that's what happens in toxic work environments. That's what happens when you start losing your identity, aren't able to really use your talents and skills in the way that you want to, are trying to conform in spaces that literally cramp your style, that tell you to think outside the box, but the box is this big, and they tell you to think outside of it, but there's actually a bigger box of policies and procedures that you're not allowed to think outside of. That innovation sits inside of there, and if innovation doesn't fit prescribed rules and prescribed teachings, then we're not going to do that. So the masterclass that I'm going to be doing, sounds like I'm from up north there. The masterclass that I'm going to be holding on the 16th is for you if you no longer, if you're feeling as if there's something more. If you're in spaces where you might be tolerating microaggressions and you are tired of doing that. If you have unclear expectations, you go into work, you might be working on projects, but the goalpost keeps moving. There isn't proper clarity around what you're doing. You're just expected to follow instructions and not question. You might be in spaces where it just feels that your spirit is being drained. It's for you if you are experiencing any of those. And what I've done is I've priced it at a really low ticket. It's only £15 because I wanted it to be easy access for everyone. And also just for you to make that commitment to come in at a really small price. But what you will be able to do is walk away with a boundary setting framework. You will be able to walk away with tips and information as to how you can start implementing these things the next day, as to how you can take control back and how you can stand in your power at work and not allow yourselves to be drained by the environments that you find yourselves in, that might be toxic, that might not be allowing you to use your skills and talents in the way that you would like to. And for those of you who do have aspirations, who do want to either move up the ladder or get out of the ladder, you've got prospects of a promotion, but that just doesn't appeal to you anymore, then this is for you. Because even if you no longer want to stay in that space, you're not going to be leaving tomorrow. So you need to have the have the skills, you need to have the tips, you need to have the information to be able to survive in that space for as long as you're going to be there. So if you are that, as they say, politely fed up professional, then this is for you. If you are the person who is the go-to person at work, but you don't feel protected, if you are feeling invisible in meetings that you feel overqualified to be in, you're sitting in spaces where you're wondering, is this it? You're in a meeting that should have been an email, and you're wondering to yourself, is this really it? If you are having your boundaries ignored because you're so capable, here, you can do another one, this masterclass is for you. And if you are carrying emotional labor, that's one of the things that I don't think we speak about enough in corporate. We speak about emotional labor when it comes to women and being in the home and that kind of things. And, as a working women, what you're carrying as emotional labor, but there is also a lot of emotional labor that you carry at work as well. I can see that somebody's watching. If you put a comment there, then I can see who it is, hopefully. Funny enough, a lot of the times the comments don't even show up afterwards, but welcome to whoever it is that's watching. But emotional labor, the emotional labor that we carry in the workplace, especially if you're really capable, especially if you're good at your job, sometimes you're the person that your manager confides in, and you're already dealing with your own stuff. And then because you are so capable in your job, then your manager comes and that isn't to say that managers shouldn't have a good relationship with their staff, but taking that on sometimes is a burden that adds to what you're already dealing with. And if you are carrying that emotional labor, like I said, that no one acknowledges, then this is for you. And that emotional labor, I say that, but it can show up in many different ways. It can show up in terms of inclusion and diversity as well. There is something about being the so-called, I'm not going to use that word, but there is something about being Black in the workplace that means that you now become the go-to and the voice for everything that happens. I remember when there were all the race riots that were happening, and there was lots of stuff going on a couple of years ago, and it was as if every head just turned to everyone who was Black in the office, in a way of, how are you feeling? Are you going to kick off and be really mad in here? But also, we want the answers from you. And as a Black person, you're already dealing with that issue, and then now you're the authority for everything Black. So that emotional labor shows up in so many different ways. And that's just one example, as being in there and maybe having, issues in terms of inclusion, issues in terms of being so capable in the office that you're having more put on you. It shows up in so many different ways. But this is the masterclass, and I've done this with my group, but I thought I'd share it with other people. I've done this on the school community, but this is the masterclass that will tell you the things that they don't tell you when you're coming in for an induction. Because I always say that when you are coming into a job, it's you're kind of being groomed in a way. You come in for you see you see the not the interview, you see the advert, and it looks really good, and you think, oh yeah, that's really good. And then you write up the application, and you get through to the sifting stage, and you get your interview, and you sit down across the table. Now you're there for the interview, put on your best shoes and your best frock, and you're sitting there in your little jacket, and you're looking really good. And sometimes there are some people that would ask the question, what's it like working here? And all of the feedback is just so positive. It's so lovely working here. And I do say that it's a red flag if they say it's like a family, because that's not good. But it isn't until you get into the job that you realize, this is really what's happening. It's really sometimes like a grooming process. And then you get in there, and then you realize, oh, this is the truth that they didn't tell me. about at the interview. Resources are going low, workloads are going high, morale is at an all-time low. What do I do next? And for many people, it's that sitting and waiting and trying to figure out, okay, do I go looking for another job? Do I wait this out? Is it going to get any better? But in the meantime, what happens is your boundaries are starting to be stepped over. Your energy levels start going down. The excitement from the first day, the excitement from the interview, and all of that just starts waning. And you don't always you don't always feel emotionally safe. And then the bad thing as well about being the new person, speaking about new people who ain't coming into jobs, but the bad thing about being the new person as well is, it's the rolled eyes of, don't come in here and try to change things. There are so many different things that happen in the workplace for people who are I don't even know, have gone down that tangent of somebody coming into the workplace as a new person. But there are so many different things and so many different nuances when it comes to being in corporate, that your emotional, psychological safety is sometimes on a teetering point, because it isn't always safe. Because if you speak about what's happening, then as the new person, then you can be alienated. If you speak about what's happening as somebody who's there for a long time, it can feel as if you're trying to undermine. And those are when I say the unwritten rules of working in corporate, that many people are trying to navigate, and it takes an emotional toll. So, sat here for longer than I wanted to, but this is the reason why I've put together the masterclass, so that we can look at how you can control your boundaries, how you can control your energy, how you can start securing your psychological safety, your emotional safety, during the time that you have to stay in those spaces, and what your responses can be. So we'll look at how you can survive microaggressions, how you can dodge and navigate office politics, and how to deal with those unrealistic expectations, and do all of that without having to dim your light, and to take back your control, and to walk into 2026 feeling more in control of your destiny, your journey when it comes to work. Because the other thing as well is, I'm just very aware that you get into this part of the year, and then all your focus is on what do you call it? Performance reviews are coming up in a couple of months' time. And what does that look like? So if you are interested in coming along to the masterclass, I will see you there. It's on the 16th of December. I will place, I think it is in the description. It should be in the description. When I come out, I'll put it in the comments as well, so that you can book your space. And if this resonates with somebody else that you can think of, it might not be for you, but if you think it's for somebody else, feel free to share the link with them so that they can come along to the masterclass. I will see you on the 16th of December, and I will see you weekly, because I'm going to be coming back here and doing these lives again on surviving corporate, what it's like to leave corporate and be living, well, my version of leaving corporate is living by coastal in the UK and the Caribbean, and also what it means to survive corporate for those of you who are still in. So thank you very much. I can see one person watching live, not quite sure. Like I said, I'll see who that is after, but welcome. Thanks for keeping me company. And for those of you who come in afterwards and watch till the end, let me know that you've come in and had a look, and have a absolutely fabulous weekend. It's Friday, I want to say evening, but it's only after 4, and it's nearly pitch black. But have a fabulous rest of your Friday and an absolutely fabulous weekend, and I'll